Scientists hope to someday establish beyond a doubt that aging and all the nefarious things that go with it can be indefinitely established. Nefarious. All the nefarious things that go with it can be indefinitely postponed simply by reducing the amount of food and calories we consume. Take note that in the prevention of Alzheimer's disease, maintaining an ideal weight may not be enough. Studies have shown that the risk of Alzheimer's disease is more closely linked to caloric intake than to weight or body mass index. This means that a junk food junkie who is blessed with a high metabolic rate that keeps her from gaining weight may still be at a higher risk for developing a memory problem. If we consider the logic that explains how caloric restriction exerts its beneficial effects on the body and mind, this makes a lot of sense. The amount of age-accelerating oxygen-free radicals generated from our diet is related to the amount of calories we consume, not to our weight. Thus, a person with a high metabolic rate who consumes greater calories may actually be producing harmful forms of oxygen than someone with a slower metabolic rate. Scientists hope to someday establish beyond a doubt that aging and all the nefarious things, 나이 먹는 것과 동반한 수많은 나쁜 일들이 can be 무기한적으로 미루어질 수 있을 거라고 본다. Simply by reducing the amount of food, 음식을 줄이고 calories, we consume, 소비하는 칼로리를 줄임으로써. 어떤 연구는 have shown that the risk of Alzheimer's disease is more linked to caloric intake, 칼로리 섭취에 더 많이 관련돼 있다. To weight or body mass, 딱히 이렇게 몸무게보다도 caloric intake가 더 중요하다. This means that a junk food junkie who is blessed with a high metabolic rate, 신진대사가 활발한 정크푸드 사랑하는 자가 calorie intake keeps her from gaining weight. metabolic rate가 높아서 살이 안 쪄. May still be at a higher risk for developing a memory problem. 살이 안 쪄도 섭취하는 칼로리가 많아서 기억력 저하가 올 수 있다. If we consider the logic that explains how caloric restriction exerts its 만약에 우리가 생각한다면 그 논리 that explains how caloric restriction, 칼로리 제한이 미치는 영향, harmful effects on the body and mind, this makes a lot of sense. 칼로리 restriction이 If we consider the logic that explains how caloric restriction exerts its this makes a lot of sense. The amount of age-accelerating oxygen-free radicals generated from our diet is related to the amount of calories we consume, not to our weight. 우리가 소모하는 칼로리에 연관되어 있다. 우리 몸무게보다. 그러므로 a person with a high metabolic rate, 신진대사율이 높은 사람은 consumes greater calories, 칼로리를 더 많이 소비하고 may actually be producing more harmful forms of oxygen, 유해산소를 더 많이 만들어낸다. If we consider logic that explains how caloric restriction exerts its 칼로리 제한이 우리 몸과 마음에 미치는 어떤 어떤 좋은 영향을 생각한다면 이것은 말이 된다. 칼로리 restriction은 뭔가 좋은 거 아니야? advanced 모르겠고요. 일단 harmful 지워보고 more, less 지워보면 뭐만 남네. 오랜만에 보니까 the action of stopping something from happening or arising. Postpone an amount of food, air, or another substance taken into the body. Intake. The act of limiting or controlling someone or something. Restriction. 문장 삽입. Other countries, including the United States, much of Europe, and increasingly Asia and elsewhere, have largely adopted a democratic and participatory decision-making process where literally millions of individuals, producers and consumers of goods and services determine what goods and how many of them will be produced. Economics are organized in different ways to answer the questions of what is to be produced. The dispute over the best way to answer this question has inflamed passions for centuries. Should a central planning board make the decisions as in North Korea and Cuba? Sometimes this highly centralized economic system is referred to as a command economy. Under this type of regime, decisions about how many tractors or automobiles to produce are largely determined by a government official or a committee associated with the central planning organization. That same group decides on the number and size of school buildings, refrigerators, shoes, and so on. A country that uses such a decentralized decision-making process is often said to have a market economy. 여기 들어가야죠. 네. Other countries, including the United States, a country that uses such a decentralized decision-making process. An argument or a disagreement between two people, groups, or countries. Dispute. Where was it? 여기 있다. A person who has a position of authority in a company, organization, or government. Official. To officially decide something, especially because of evidence or facts. Decides? To officially decide something. Or make the decisions as in this highly centralized economic system is referred to as under this type of regime, decisions about how many tractors or automobiles to produce are largely determined by 요양문 완성. Research with human runners centralized. Research with human runners challenged conventional wisdom. Human runners challenged conventional wisdom and found that the ground reaction forces are at the foot. Forces at the foot and the shock transmitted up the leg and through the body after impact with the ground varied little as runners moved from extremely compliant to extremely hard running surfaces. As a result, researchers gradually began to believe that runners are subconsciously able to adjust leg stiffness preferred to foot strike based on their perceptions of the hardness or stiffness of the surface on which they are running. This view suggests that runners create soft legs that soak up impact forces, when they are running on very hard surfaces, and stiff legs when they are moving along unyielding terrain. As a result, impact forces passing through the legs are strikingly similar over a wide range of running surface types. Contrary to popular belief, running on concrete is not more damaging to the legs than running on soft sand. As human, 그 매질에 따라서 휴먼의 다리가 달라진다. As human runners are able to regulate their leg stiffness in response to the surface hardness, the level of impact forces transmitted to the runner is almost constant. Yes. To pass something from one person or place to another, transmit the act or force of one thing hitting another, impact. To change something in a minor way so that it works better. Adjust. Gradually began to believe that runners are subconsciously able to adjust leg stiffness prior to foot strike. The M&M philosophy, make new mistakes, recognizes that mistakes are opportunities to learn. Of course, making the same old mistakes over and over isn't very smart. We should learn from our mistakes so that we don't repeat them. Yet making no mistakes isn't very smart either. Anyway, making no mistakes means that we cease to execute a familiar model or formula. We cease. What is cease? 어쨌든 계속 똑같은 걸 한다. Making no mistakes means a lack of creativity and new strategies. Conversely, making new mistakes means that different activities and directions are being attempted. Okay, we should make mistakes when we try new things. If we don't do so, then we aren't being ambitious enough. The key is to learn from our new mistakes so that we grow as a result of them. If we want our teachers to learn from their experiences, to actively engage in anticipating, hypothesis testing, reflecting, and analyzing, they need to know that learning is messy and that it's all right to feel comfortable when they make a mistake. Yes, learning is messy. That we cease to execute a familiar model. I don't know what cease means. Cease. To cease. Well, cease. Anyway, and other things are just right. I think so. A particular method of doing or achieving something. A particular method. F로 시작한다고? Familiar model formula. To think of something that will or might happen in the future. Anticipate. An idea or theory that is not proven but that leads to further study or discussion. Hypothesis. 답을 맞춰보자. 5번, 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 2번. 맞긴 다 받았고 단어가 establish beyond the doubt risk linked to exert. Okay, prevention. Right? What? Word search. 이거 오류다. An argument or disagreement between two people, groups, or countries. Prevention은 여기 안 나왔어. 이거 dispute 맞을걸? 찾아봐야지. 그치. An argument or disagreement between two people. 그치? 분쟁, 분교, 논란, 분쟁. 맞아요. 뭐야 이거? 오류잖아. Official. 뭐야. 아가씨 내가 2번 보고 있잖아. 멍충이 똥개 같은 이라고. An action of stopping something from happening or arising. 그럼 이거가 prevention. postpone 말고 stopping something. 알겠어. Intake restriction. 103. Dispute. Official. Determine. Number 3. Transmit. Impact. Adjust. Yielding. 이 단어는 yielding. 유연한. 그러면은 여기서 나오는 yielding 이라는 뜻은 compliant랑 비슷한 뜻으로 쓰였습니다. 이거는 이게 its surface is soft, elastic. 이렇게 정리해 보겠어. Number 4. Formula. Anticipate. Hypothesis. Inversely. Okay. Seize는 그래서 무슨 뜻이냐면 seize 중단하다라. 그렇군. 라는 뜻이니까 여기서는 continue 정도로 바꿔 쓰는 게 낫겠어요. Execute. 이거는 실행하다. 이거 해리포터에서 뭐지? 그 먹빅 목을 내리치는 사람 그 맥네일 아저씨가 엑세큐셔너였어. 실행하는 사람이었군. 예, 알겠습니다. 오늘 끝. 오랜만에 했다.